Welcome back to Beyond the Spectrum. This is episode 13, and I am Dreem, sharing my family's journey with autism. This episode I have been excited for. I actually wrote a post about this, 2-3 years ago, 4 maybe. That was really, really special to me. And every time I think about it and I try to share it with people, I don't know if I can express it as eloquently as I should be able to and impart the emotion that is really felt by me. But maybe it's just one of those things that I get to share, and those who get it, and those who don't can still appreciate a good story. When Micah started learning language, I think I had mentioned this earlier, it was a little bit robotic. It was almost as if he was learning a brand new language. So when you think about the way that you learn a language, especially as an adult, when you're a child, you tend to learn it like second nature, and you're a sponge and your brain is growing and things are just moving much more quickly in a typical situation. But as you get older, what happens? We have to kind of do that whole robotic thing where we're speaking and I'm trying to think in one language and then translate and then actually get my mouth to move in all the right ways with all the right inflections and different sounds that maybe aren't in our native alphabet. And it can just be very robotic. It doesn't sound fluent. And so imagine that. Imagine that you now have to say, I would like to walk into this room and pick up my toy and take it to my brother so that we can play for an hour in another language. You may not have all the words. And when that happens, you might stutter a little bit. You might have to pause in between the words. That's what it was like when Micah would talk in the very beginning. He was picking up a lot of vocabulary. It was amazing how fast he was picking up the vocabulary. It was, I think, the first day that we went to Hope. It might have even been before that when we were at the resource center and we had to write down how many words he could speak at that stage. You know, when you think about your child at that age, you think, I can't possibly think of all the words. It's beyond what I can even think of right now because there's all these words that I've heard them say, but I can't even recall. That's how many there are. With Micah, it was 8. I think within a week it was up to, 15, 20, and then it was 45. It was just, the explosion was incredible. The things that were happening were just wild. And it was all based on just things that we were doing differently. Probably the number one problem was always anticipating what he needed and not allowing him to speak and work through that and try. But once I stopped and once he realized he was only going to be able to communicate if he tried, that was huge. And then the brain just started to realize we need to be turned on here and firing on all cylinders if we are going to survive in this world, because that woman has stopped translating for us. So yes, the whole language thing was an amazing, amazing journey to watch. And it was wild to sit there and see his brain working when he would speak words. It was choppy and there was hesitation and there was insecurity, but you could see him trying, and it was a beautiful thing. But the words did not always have emotion behind it. They were words that he was learning for a purpose. They were words that he was learning for having a need fulfilled. And language also comes alongside nicely with relationships. And so when he would talk to me, it was very need-oriented. He needed a drink. He needed to play. He needed his blanket. And for him, I was a very valuable person in his world. But there was not a lot of affection there. It was an appreciation. And it was definitely a trust, but it wasn't necessarily expressed as love. But he knew how to say, I love you. And he did often, because that was the pattern. That was the schedule. It was part of good morning, I love you. It was part of come give me a hug, I love you. It was part of I love you, good night. It just kind of fit that whole regimen. And I remember the day when I love you was no longer something that was cold and indifferent and expected to say. He looked at me, and all of a sudden he realized, oh, you're not just the cook, you're not just the nurse, you're not just the caretaker, you're not just the maid, you're not just the teacher. I like being with you, and I feel safe with you. I feel warm with you. I feel cared for by you. I like that. You're special in my life. You're my mommy. And I remember when it became, I love you for the first time, even though I had heard it so many times before. I remember when it became real and he felt it. And to this day, that hasn't changed. When he sees me in the morning, he comes over to me, all 6'2" of him, and kisses me on top of my 5'2" head and tells me, "You're cute. I love you." And he understood then, and it's only gotten deeper since. Watch out for those differences. Watch out for those subtle changes. Treasure them in your heart because they are precious gifts that are given all along the way. Don't forget them because you're going to have so many attacks that come that wear you down and break you down. And you need all those special little moments so that you can surround yourself with them and decorate your home with all these little gems that sparkle for your family. That's all for today. See you tomorrow.